It's easy to celebrate the wins. No one wants to talk about doing wrong or failing. And so often that leads to a company culture where like good news travels fast and bad news travels slow because kind of people don't want to get in trouble.
Samantha Rose, founder and CEO of Mvnifest and Endless Commerce.
You can abstract this to our most base instincts and like parent-child relationships where like, if you do something good, you tell your parents right away because, you want them to be proud of you. And if you do something bad, you're like, well, let's see if they notice. And I think with investors, colleagues, partners, it doesn't really matter where in the relationship you are, allowing bad news to travel at the speed of good news and getting comfortable with being the bearer of bad news and also coming with solutions, that's a huge unlock.
Sam, welcome to Founders and Empanadas. How are you doing today?
I'm sorry, I'm just getting some arugula off my empanada so this camera ready. I'm awesome. How are you?
I am amazing. It's great to reconnect with you. Let's take a bite in. Let's see what you got. It's a mystery flavor.
All right, we're gonna do this as on camera as it can be. I will say my laptop is like right here, so we're gonna do some ASMR on this thing.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, this looks awesome. Okay, we've got like maybe ground beef, definitely a jalapeno in here. Oh, all the spices. Oh, it's very limey. It's a very limey empanada. I'm not complaining.
So Sam, this is actually hot takes with the empanadas. So each empanada is going to get progressively more chili spice going on.
It's dirty to me. That is great. That's little known, but I try to popularize a fact about me is I love spicy food.
Amazing. So I'm guessing when you came to Colombia, I understand you visited Bogota a little over a year ago, that it was a little bit hard to find spice over there.
Okay, well, and this is sort of like, chalk this up to me not being well-traveled enough. I live in Southern California. I grew up an hour from the border to Mexico. Spicy food and then like Latin America are so tightly correlated for me. And so I was like, I had to be awoken to the fact that spicy food is not a Colombian thing. Everyone's like, no, Sam, stop it. Like, that's just like really inappropriate. Like, stop asking. So, you're right. Not a lot of spicy food to be found in my limited experience in Colombia.
So Sam, we first met at the Hampton retreat in Ojai near the beginning of the year. I loved one of my aha moments from that trip was you and I think it was 4 other founders that within an hour of sitting together at dinner created this idea for the most ridiculous, but I would still buy into it, business idea. You want to give us a 30-second rundown of what it was? 30-second pitch?
I would be delighted to. Hold my empanada. Have you ever, I'm just going to pitch you. This is how we're going to do it. Have you ever had a pet that you really, really loved?
Of course.
Have you ever wanted to make sure that that pet had the appropriate food for its stage of life?
Yeah.
Has that pet ever been a reptile?
It has not.
Okay. Well, if it had been, you'd be in our ICP because I got a product for you. So this is Mice on Ice. Mice on Ice LLC for anyone really asking. Also, there's a side product, which I'll get to in a second. Mice on Ice delivers fresh frozen rodents to your doorstep that are age and stage appropriate to your reptile friends' nutritional needs. And it's a circular economy because the way that we collect the mice is to capture and gently kill behind restaurants. So the restaurants pay us to get the mice because, they can't have those little things and rats running around in the back. And then we flash freeze them and we put them in adorable little coffins and we send them to your doorstep and you give it to your not furry friend and the not furry friend is very happy. See, the problem with older snakes is they can't move as fast. So,
Gotta make it easier for them.
You need a frozen mouse. But the frozen mouse unboxing experience is like nobody likes that. So they come in cute little coffins. Second product, revenge rodents. Because what are you going to do with all of the leftover mice? Well, you're going to send them to the people that you hate. So revengerodents.com sends a box full of a Flash frozen mouse and confetti to the people that you love or love to hate.
I love it.
And you were one of our first supporters.
I was one of the first ones. I remember you were describing the unboxing experience to be akin to the crisp unboxing of an iPhone case, and there's a little mice with a tuxedo waiting for you inside.
So cute, right? Which reptile friend of yours would not want to snack on that?
So to our listeners, yeah, Sam put together this website in like 1 hour, and I was trying to purchase by Bitcoin on my flight back from California.
See, that's the fun thing about tech these days. Like, I used to have to hard code stuff. It would take me days to build a website, but now I just, yeah, we like did some AI illustrations. It took me 3 minutes to buy the URL. It took me another 3 minutes to get Midjourney to spit out a homepage image. I stuck it up online, and then we started getting like a lot of interest. I don't think this is a terrible business model. We're not actually going to do it, but we made some really, really good friends in that moment. And I think this is sort of like, my blessing and curse in life is that like coming up with new business ideas sort of just happens like, in a way that's hard to throttle. And, sometimes you hit goal, like Mice on Ice LLC.
And today we're going to dive a little bit deeper into business failures or unknown failures. Mice and Ice, we will never know.
Opportunities that passed us by, failures that we didn't even realize.
But before we dive into the heavy topics, I also just want to share that I am very fortunate to have Sam on board because I am a self-proclaimed business card nerd. And our very own Sam was featured on the Chase Business Premier commercial. So for my fellow credit card enthusiasts out there, check it out.
Are you a points guy?
I'm one of the points guys. I haven't paid for a flight around the world in the past like 5 years.
Rack them up. Yeah, that card's great. Actually, I am not being paid to promote it. But that was a fun moment. Chase is like a huge part of our business success at the end of the day. But like I was looking for products that I could show, and one of them was like a product that, was not an abject failure, but definitely had some tough spots. Anyway, we can get into it.
Let's dive in. Before we do, let's get another empanada bite in there. How's the chili coming along?
I have 3 empanadas in front of me. I'm going to break them all apart individually on camera over the course of the next hour. So
all
this
right.
one, oh, it's the same flavor. Okay, well, here. But what we're looking at is like real crispy crust on top. Of course, DoorDash kindly delivered these, and then I let it sit for a little bit. So we're not gonna fault them for the bottom of it. But this is a very olive forward empanada. I hope this is what you want me to be saying. It's an olive forward empanada, which is a surprise, and it's delicious.
Different. I love it.
What's yours?
I'm going with a feta cheese empanada. This one's a little bit different than my usual.
Like phyllo dough?
Yeah, it's feta cheese and a little bit of mystery green plants. I don't know.
Spinach? It's spanakopita. I think you're spanakopita out. You must be empanada.
Awesome, Sam. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about your origin story and walk me through maybe the first failure that you experienced in your career and the learnings that you took away from that.
Oh, like in my career or as an entrepreneur, first failure? Because those are different moments.
Let's do as an entrepreneur.
Okay, sure. I didn't forget the other thing because it was way worse. Okay, first failure. I mean, I've definitely designed a few products that didn't work. So I'll give you kind of like the quick version of my backstory. Takes place in 3 or 4 parts. The first piece is a consumer brand called Gear that I founded in 2012. I ran it for 9 years, full of successes, full of failures. We'll talk about them here. It was acquired in 2021, which was a great outcome for us. Put me in a position to start investing in other brands and founders that I believed in. also really start focusing on another business that had kind of like sprung up out of the middle of all of that, which is called Mvnifest. And Mvnifest does supply chain management, industrial design, operations, and fulfillment for consumer brands from, one product and $100 in sales all the way up to $1 billion in sales. Endless Commerce, which is a software platform. Some of our development teams in Colombia, so let's get into that. And really our goal there is to enable commerce, again, from that same kind of like starting out all the way up to scaling. And I've kind of finally formalized some of the investing that I do to support founders in a business called Hologram. So all of this, but let's go back to gear because that's really where it all starts. And as I take another bite of the empanada, let me tell you about a pair of tongs that I really believed in that, didn't exactly work out. So, wait, I was everywhere. Tongs. So Gear's brand name was Get It Right. And I had this perspective that like everything we did would need to be special in some way, like would need to get it right. The name was the mission. That was enormously clarifying in a lot of ways. It meant that like, we could kind of test whether or not something was going to like meet the brief well or not from really day one. And I guess I could tease you through this. Like, what would you want out of a perfect pair of tongs?
To make all my dreams come true. I don't know.
Oh, wow. That is so much more than we were going to do. We were just going to make them lock and unlock with one hand. So like if this hand is busy with whatever, the piece of chicken or the empanada, you can just, and you're eating an empanada while you're grilling, you can lock and unlock the tongs with one hand. So we invented like this cool mechanism for it. And the mechanism worked like from a physics perspective, it worked. It worked in a vacuum. But when friction was involved, or when like manufacturing tolerances became involved, it almost worked. And so this thing would happen, it would spring apart by surprise. And so then we made like a little sock to put over the top of the tongs to hold them closed. And anyway, it was just one of those sort of things where like I really just should have. And one of our industrial designers was like, Sam, just let it be a normal pair of tongs. And I was like, no, this is Get It Right. And we're special and they're going to be special. And he was really right. And Mike, I apologize. I should have listened to you. And like we made this pair of tongs that ended up costing us like hundreds of thousands of dollars because then we replaced everybody's tongs because we wanted to give them real good ones and not the bad ones. And like, it was just, anyway, that's a failure. I should have taken no for an answer.
That's a fair one. And at what point of testing did you realize that, and did Mike start pushing back on you?
I think Mike knew near the beginning. But we literally didn't take no for an answer. We went to market with the tongs. And that I think is like, I think what I didn't realize as a younger entrepreneur is that if signs point to failure, you can choose to stop. And however much opportunity cost or actual losses you racked up, they're always going to be less than like when you've delivered a product to the customer. Like having to make it up for a delivered product to the customer is the worst. And sometimes that calculus goes like, well, I've already gotten this far. I got this much left to go. Let me just keep going. For the record, I think that's like inherent to entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship. Like entrepreneurs are types of people who are just like insane and don't take no for an answer. And that's what makes it work most of the time. But it's also one of those things that like, can end up being the critical fail point is like, okay, well, you should have taken no for an answer. And you didn't.
I know that I've fallen susceptible to the sunk cost fallacy number of times. Well, we've already gone this far. Let's just keep pushing through it.
It's a tasty fallacy.
My go-to failure story is my first business out of college, which was augmented reality training for plumbers. This is back in 2017, using the big clunky Microsoft HoloLens. And like 5 minutes into the plumber wearing it, they're like, "Take this shit off. I'm getting sweaty. It's too heavy." And I was like, "No, but the technology's cool. Like, just give it a try." And just never got product market fit there. But
you actually did that?
We did. Yep.
Was it fun then?
It was fun. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of like AR courses of me installing toilet seats out there in the internet. So let's progress a little bit along in your career after the tongs experience. What was your next failure, and what were your key takeaways that were different from the tongs story?
We're going to have to list them all.
Yeah.
Well, more product fails. This will be funny. So, okay, so we started another business, another brand, but kind of under the same, I don't know, like investing vehicle or holdco called Sorry Robots. And this brand was called Voltaire. It was for a smart coffee grinder. The coffee grinder worked. A bunch of accessories around it were like really difficult to bring to market. One of which was, I think I should send you a picture of this so you can like put it in the pod. So we made this cup called the Ever Cup that was a glass cup with like a cool silicone sleeve on it, and then like a top that would keep your coffee, hot inside, but then could like twist off. And TLDR, the manufacturer was supposed to make it 3 millimeters thick and made it like a third of that thickness. And so once again, do the production run, start shipping glasses to customers, and the glasses are like not literally exploding, but like not staying intact. The thing that glass does in between exploding and being like, intact. And so we had to recall all of them. Again, just a total abject failure at the 11th hour. Best laid plans of mice and men and engineers, and it was frankly dangerous. And I felt really, no one got hurt, but I felt really self-conscious around that. Like the last thing I want to do in my whole life is hurt anyone for any reason, through any means. And all of a sudden I've got like these glasses, and people that I know, my friends, and also plenty of people that I don't know are like, what the hell? This is like, it cracked. And so we had to recall them, and that was very expensive. Recalls are expensive. But we did the right thing, and I'm very proud of that. I think through all the fails, the thing that I'm most proud of is that like there are ways to fail and do the wrong thing, but get out a little bit cheaper for yourself. And there's ways to fail and still do the right thing. And like, but that's a little bit of the nice guys finish last. That's not a fallacy. That's the truth. But I definitely have lost like a lot of, time and money trying to fix things that were unfixable.
Yeah. And how do you cultivate team culture and just deal with team morale in the face of, for example, that failure?
Oh, well, that, man, is like that is a superpower for me, I think. I mean, you'll have to ask the team if they actually were happy. But like for me personally, being okay through a stressful situation is part of what makes it possible for me to be as ambitious as I've been. So you just, you gotta die with a smile, and just move on. And I think maybe, tools that are less, I don't know, about my own psychoanalysis and more like transferable or helpful to other people. Like just being honest really helps. It helps you feel better through the failure. And it also helps your customers or colleagues understand that like shit's going to happen, and we're just going to do the right thing no matter what. And I truly think just having a positive attitude from the team perspective more than the customer perspective. Sometimes when you're positive in the face of failure, customers are like, well, you're an asshole. Like, why are you, like, something just went really wrong for me, and you're being nice, and you should be mad and sad. And so you kind of have to, like engineer the right emotional level or tenor to be at with the customer. But I think for team members, just knowing that like someone is there having a positive point of view around the bigger wins and what's around the corner, that really helps. And like there have been hard moments. I wouldn't call them failures, but like there's definitely been moments where like it's, I don't know, we're in our warehouse, we're shipping for ourselves. It's 2 a.m. It's 5 days before Christmas, and we're trying to get like the last FedEx things out. And so we're all kind of suffering and not being with our families so that everyone else can have a fun Christmas with their families or holiday, whatever the holidays that you celebrate, and whatever the 5 days before that is, where like you're panicking to get the job done. Like keeping your chin up in that sort of situation is so meaningful, because sometimes people are looking toward the whatever it's founder, leader, manager, whatever point of authority that you have relative to your colleagues, and saying, well, if this person's okay, then I'm probably okay. I'm probably going to be okay. And that feels really good. And I know that I've been comforted by that as a colleague and an employee too, is to look to someone who's like, maybe has a lot of situational context, and say, okay, well, if they're okay with the situational context they have, then it's okay for me to be okay too.
Yeah, I've experienced that similarly when, especially employees see the founder having a positive approach when they have a lot more, stakes on the line. That's a lot calming for them. How about any strategies you've used besides, just being honest, but strategies you've used for talking about failures and confronting that with investors?
Well, this is not a concept that I invented, but it's one that I use every day, which is that good news and bad news should travel at the same speed. And hopefully that speed is really, really fast, because it's so easy. This is Ben Horowitz, by the way, from The Hard Thing About Hard Things, is like the first place I read it. I don't know if he can attribute it to someone else, but I always kind of attribute it to him. So like, it's easy to celebrate the wins. No one wants to talk about doing wrong or failing. And so often that leads to a company culture where like good news travels fast and bad news travels slow, because kind of people don't want to get in trouble. It's like, you can abstract this to our most base instincts and like parent-child relationships, where like, if you do something good, you tell your parents right away, because you want them to be proud of you. And if you do something bad, you're like, well, let's see if they notice. And I think with it, but investors, colleagues, partners, it doesn't really matter where in the relationship you are. Allowing bad news to travel at the speed of good news, and getting comfortable with being the bearer of bad news and also coming with solutions, that's a huge unlock. So I'm a big fan of like the bad news traveling fast,
and much easier for it to come from you than for them to learn it from another party or later down the road.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sam, going back to the previous example, I'd love to dive a little bit deeper into how you handled the messaging to your customers and how you struck that balance between, being positive but not overly, hey, there's still things that need to be fixed. Could you give me like a concrete examples of like maybe frameworks you use, or like how you crafted that messaging?
Yeah. Often we just came right out with it. So like, this is another example, but this is a good concrete example. We were shipping masks during COVID, and it was like, we didn't know that sourdough bread was going to be a thing. So we just sort of tried to figure out what we could do really, really quickly to save our jobs and to stay busy. And it just so happened that like housewares went bonkers. But in the meantime, in the intervening 3 weeks where like no one knew what was going on and everyone was trying to find masks, we were like, well, we have supply chain rails that are like, pretty established, and we can make a mask out of silicone and we can put an N95 filter in it. Like, let's do that. So we were one of the first businesses to have a mask product at the time when, like the CDC was like giving you templates for how to cut your cotton t-shirts into a mask. And so we really scrambled to put this product together and to, get it into a container, and we were manufacturing in China. And that came with its own set of complications and considerations, and both regulatory and from a customer perception, just trying to like get things into people's hands as quickly as possible. And we were late. Like, we didn't know what was going to happen with the supply chain or with shipping or the ports. We just got a product, on a boat and started shipping. So we're late, and people are like scared for their safety, right? Like, all of a sudden I'm a safety officer. I'm like a compliance officer. People are asking, I don't know, me about their personal health and how our product is going to help. I'm like, well, I'm not really the right person to be asking this, but I'm just going to do my best. And then they started to get angry when it was late. And the direct answer to your question is like, when we were late and we knew it, the subject line of our email was we are so sorry. We just came out with it. And same like, and this is the picture I'll show you for the glasses that we're breaking, we used one as an unbroken one. We used it as a little cactus planter. Like we got this adorable little cactus from the grocery store and stuck it with some soil in the cup. I wish I had one here. And it was like real spiky cactus. We stick it in and we take this really adorable, beautiful, but like threatening photo. And the caption was, grabbing this would literally be less painful. So we used, humor and candor to get ourselves through it. And sometimes candor is the thing that works, and sometimes humor is the thing that works, and sometimes it's a combination of both. And I think that it's certainly, a talent to be able to pick the right one for the right situation. And that has everything to do with, being genuinely related and caring about your customers. I really believe that. I think people bandy that crap about all of the time. And, but you can see it when it's real, and you can sniff it when it's not, just like an empanada.
Totally. Have you come across any examples from one of your brands or another brand where you felt like the use of humor didn't come off well or was off message?
Oh, I don't know if I can speak to that. I respond really well to humor. Nothing comes immediately to mind where humor like super duper didn't work. I guess I can recall a few customer conversations where I wouldn't call this me using humor in an inappropriate sense, but definitely where like smiling in the face of, or being positive in the face of failure was like perceived as me making light of something. And the customer's not wrong in that situation. You just have to be able to read the room. And definitely like being the one to come off as unserious in a situation is like, that's never the intent, but that can happen.
Something that I struggle with at times too, of getting a little overboard with the GIFs usage or the emojis for more serious matters. But life is short. Gotta throw some empanadas at it, right?
Yeah, throw empanadas at it. I'm really enjoying this, by the way.
I love it. What's your? Are they all the same flavor, or is there a little bit of a?
They're all the same flavor, but I'm not complaining. I'm getting olive notes. There's some nice kind of hard cheese in here. It's a hard soft cheese. It's maybe it's either like a mozzarella or maybe like a cotija. A little harder than a queso fresco. You know what I mean?
Awesome, Sam. And I want to go back to the Chase story that you referenced. What was the product featured in that commercial that tied into a good failure or learning story?
Well, that was the Voltaire was the brand. The cup was the thing. But I got to celebrate that grinder on TV in front of, I don't know, however, hundreds of millions of folks. That was a really cool moment. Chase called and said, hey, like, we're looking for someone with similar purchasing behavior, effectively, to like be a spokesperson for this card. And, I don't know, spokesperson, but to be featured. Our business, the Mvnifest business, was relatively new at the time. Like I had recently sold gear. It was about a year after selling gear. So what I had to our name was mostly like either stuff for clients that was top secret and like we never would have gotten permission to share on TV, or these kind of past wins. And that was like deeply fulfilling in so many ways. I mean, just wonderful to be able to celebrate that business in that way.
So cool. So Chase just found you based off of purchase history and just tracking the customers.
I mean, they do pretty much know everything about.
That's true. Oh.
Yeah. We got a call from our business banker, and so since we own a 3PL, there were a lot of big purchases that. Pardon me. There's a lot of big purchases that come, a lot of capex with a 3PL. You're buying, $500,000 of racking and forklifts, 3D printers, some cool tech, light rooms, light boxes, a lot of photography equipment. Short run manufacturing equipment. That's for the design side of the business. So they saw us making these kind of like neato but expensive purchases. And they were like, you and that card, because that particular card is 2.5% cash back for purchases over $5,000, and our business fit that bill.
Very cool. The only downside is you don't get the ultimate rewards points. It's just the cash back. That's the kicker.
It's just a cashback. Well, those are the sorts of trade-offs you have to consider.
Totally.
That's why having multiple cards in the portfolio is useful. You got to know which one to use when. Brian is my husband and business partner. You met Brian. He has a note, like a note in the notes app that we share across our phones, and basically he's the points guy, and before I buy anything, I'm like, which one was I supposed to use for this thing? I know the Chase one. That's for $5,000 or more. But yeah, I have a Rolodex of different cards that we use in different situations.
The tricky ones are when they rotate the categories every quarter, and you got to Google which quarter are we on again. And
that's why it's a live note that we share. I can't just memorize it. I have 7 credit card numbers memorized. I won't repeat them because that's not secure, but I do. But I don't ever know which one to use when, like which month.
When I was flagging this, I had to double check I'm not showing my card numbers on the.
Oh yeah, on the back. They know what they're doing.
Awesome, Sam. Hey, and I want to talk a little bit more about your team in Colombia that you visited last year. How did you and Brian first land on sourcing talent out of Colombia, and what type of roles are you working with out of that country?
So this is for our SaaS product, Endless Commerce. Endless Commerce is like a commerce OS for growing brands. So you can think about it like a light EDI, or a kind of multi-solution replacement for stuff like catalog order, inventory management, demand planning and forecasting, purchase order management. All the stuff that was really hard about those other businesses. And we were like, we're just going to put this into a product and make life a little bit easier. So we started by bootstrapping that business. And it's a venture scale business. It's venture funded now, and thank you, investors. I'm very grateful for that. But for a hot second there, when we were starting out, we wanted to create a proof of concept that punched above its weight. And we had a couple of people in Guadalajara, Mexico, and then a few people in Colombia and an office in Colombia. And that allowed us to kind of build in stealth pretty quickly, but with folks that were deeply focused on the cause and full-time employees for us. And that was important because what we built and what we were building at the time was not, this is always my joke, so this is going to follow me around forever, but it's not a dream journal. This isn't like a simple little tool that you can use one day and then not use the next day and then come back to in a couple of days. This is like the pipes for, speaking of plumbing, for your orders, your inventory, all of the revenue of a business. And it's very important that it doesn't fail. It cannot fail, because if it fails, we're breaking revenue for that day. And that'd be a huge problem. So we had to build a lot to build a proof of concept. And we wanted to find a place where we could have dedicated engineers and folks on the product management, project management, UI, UX, and business management side, who had come from places like Marketo and had a lot of area understanding, but also, could kind of help us get this thing out of stealth.
I love that. And I understand from Brian that you also went through the process of setting up a business entity, a SaaS in Colombia, and having them as full-time employees. That's pretty unique. I know a lot of companies do that.
We took it very seriously. It's a SaaS with one fewer letter. So for anyone listening to know, the SAS is sort of like an LLC or a C Corp, but the Colombian version of it. And we are official. That included a lot of biometric scanning and basically guarantee that I'm never going to break the law because I'm being followed. Not worth it.
Yeah, if you think Chase has a lot of info on you, wait for the Colombian government. But kudos to you and Brian for navigating the labyrinthine legal system that we have here in Colombia and setting up the entity for providing benefits. That's awesome.
Thank you. Highly controlled, but ultimately successful. Took a little longer than we thought, but we did it.
As do most things here in Colombia, but it's working. Awesome, Sam. And we've talked a lot about hardware failures. How about on the software side? Any good learnings that you can share?
Yeah, I mean, basically, so for that same product, we came out wanting to compete, with it kind of like big dogs in ERP. They've got a 30-year head start. It's a massive undertaking. We're very ambitious about it. Um, and when some folks on our tech team heard that we want to compete with blank, not to be named, I mean, it could be named, it's not that big of a deal, but like, we want to compete with these guys. They're like, okay, I'll just say it, it'll make it easier. We want to compete with NetSuite. And the engineers are like, okay, you want to compete with NetSuite? Let's build NetSuite. So they start to build like an enormous application, 50 something repos, like a lot of Lambda going on. Like I didn't know anything about, I'm like very technical and I can code modestly. I wouldn't hire myself as a coder, but like I can build. But this, like, I mean, I'm not a back-end architect. So there were a lot of elements of building in this way that were like, okay, I'm on a really steep learning curve here. I'm going to try to go up it quickly. But there was a moment where I didn't know enough to know that just launching a lighter weight MVP and getting some customers and getting some proof points would be so much more valuable in the long run than like trying to build NetSuite. So that was a big fail. We basically had to start over from a technical perspective, and fortunately, we were able to keep the entire front end. It's in React and and Next, and so we just kind of ripped and replaced our own back end pre-market, and that was like financially really, really stressful too, because we spent a lot of money building in this way that ultimately was like not sustainable. We grew to a team of 20 developers to sustain. And I think the analogy that I like to use, I don't know how much anyone else likes this, but here's what works in my head. Like, we want to light an area, that's like the user, the value that we're delivering to the user is to shed light on something, say. I'm like, okay, well, let's start by shedding light through let's make a flashlight and shed light on this area. And what we did instead was we built a power plant, and that can shed light, right? Like, the value it's delivering is the same. It's to many more people, but how many engineers, now literal physical engineers, does it take to manage a power plant that can power a city? And is it really feasible to get all the way to powering a city? Is it affordable to do that when you can make money just like with a flashlight for a second? I should have just made a flashlight. So that the flashlight analogy is to me helpful for art. I think oftentimes you'll hear sort of like, tricycle, bicycle, car, something, whatever that thing is. There's an analogy in software of like, you build a bike and then you build a car. There's something in between, but mine is a flashlight and power plant. We built a power plant.
I'm going to steal that analogy. That's a good one. And what were the conversations like with your husband and business partner, Brian, of having to make that significant pivot from the power plant to scrapping it to the flashlight?
We should have failed so much faster, and we didn't. And that was a mistake. Like, we didn't take no for an answer. We kept feeling like we were so close, and the team kept feeling like they were so close. And it took us a while to realize that we were not so close. In fact, it took one of our engineers basically taking the initiative to say, I'm just going to build this in my free time in a different way and show you that it can be built in a different way. And he did that. And thank you. And that was a real proof of concept. I think there was an element of not technical maturity in every sense, but technical maturity in the kind of like building enterprise software sense, that we were very much beholden to the opinions of others around us for a minute. And fortunately, we've kind of like surmounted that learning curve. But for a moment, and this will be true if you're ever starting something new that is forcing you to learn, but also putting you in a leadership position, so you're learning and leading at the same time. It's hard to balance, but you must, the trusting your own instincts around how something ought to come to life versus what other people around you are telling you. And so surrounding yourself with people that you that you trust and whose technical capability is the right size and fit for where you are at on your learning journey is a big piece of it.
And Sam, to wrap it up for our early founder listeners today, how would you wrap it up from all of your experiences of when to know when you failed and you should just shut it down, or when you should pivot and move forward?
Oh, that's the $64 billion question now. I don't know if I have a good rubric for it. I think that not taking no for an answer is inherent to entrepreneurial success. And I think it's also a piece and part of entrepreneurial failure. And I think if you take no for an answer too early, you leave opportunity on the table. And that's like a really uncomfortable feeling for an entrepreneur. I don't have a perfect rubric for this. I'm still learning how to do it. And I think I'm still kind of biased toward pushing to the nth degree and not taking no for an answer. And I'm probably still going to suffer from that. Like maybe next week, who knows? But I think starting to count the failures, to be honest about them, and not numerically necessarily, but to be able to look at failure and extract information from it, to let that information move fast instead of forcing it to move slowly, like so many people are instinctually, geared toward doing, not to hide from the conversation of failure. That's a big piece of it. Then you can start to build, whether it's through instinct or whether through it's a written process, like a check process. You can start to kind of like build, some procedure or fallbacks for yourself for when to call it. And I've certainly done that. Like being honest with myself about the failures has been a big part of making the moments between them a little bit longer every time,
Totally. And beyond just being honest with yourself, are there any maybe more unconventional metrics that you've found helpful to track to kind of measure productive failure, maybe in operations?
Oh, okay. Give me an example of what you're thinking of, and then I'll give you a pile of examples that reminds me of.
Yeah, you got a new D2C product launch, and beyond, order rate margins, any kind of unconventional metrics that you have found have been an early determinant of a product success or failure?
Well, I don't know how unique this is going to be, but certainly something that I use and I think might be helpful to people listening. Like talking to customers, staying super tight with the customer is the best. And I don't know if it's unconventional, but I certainly think it's not all that repeatable. And as a founder, staying really close to the customers, because it's really easy to start, as you get more successful or as the enterprise gets bigger and as your responsibilities shift from individual contribution and leadership of a small team to kind of like management and individual contribution where you can, but like the IC asks of you as a founder are going to like pile up. And I do all my IC stuff like in a second workday late at night. Like that's, I have to have 2 work days to pull it all off, which is not healthy and not recommended, but it's the way it is right now. And I keep coming back to talking to our customers as a way to understand and again, just develop intuition around what's working or not working, or things like product market fit, or even better, like opportunities. So to the extent that I can't literally be talking to our customers every day anymore, I used to be literally the customer service person for every business I started as the customer service person. And then, eventually kind of have, a team around it that we can build and hopefully carries the torch in the right way. I read every single email that passes through every organization that I have majority ownership of. I literally read every email we write. And those emails, most of the time, they're customer emails. We're not emailing each other. We're slacking each other. We're emailing our customers and they're emailing us. And I read every single Slack message in every channel of the businesses. And that for me is, it's the sort of thing where it would be luxurious not to have to, but I think I'd lose the edge. Like I learn about what our product should be every day from our customers. And it is a part of my creative process to consume as much information as I can. And then in the peace and repose of the evening, say, okay, like, well, what could I do to make that thing easier, that interaction easier? That's where new product comes from for me. And that is just really like listening.
Sam, I work in customer support all day long, and that's music to my ears. I love hearing founders that stay into it. I think that's, a quick way that a lot of startups go wrong is, too quickly delegating customer support, or if they're outsourcing it, not having the outsourced team have a direct voice with the product team, because at the end of the day, it's support. They are the voices of the customers. And you can't lose touch of that. Awesome. Sam, well, thank you so much for joining today and eating some empanadas. Where can people find you online?
You can find me at endlesscommerce.com or Mvnifest.com. Mvnifest is spelled a funny way. Let me spell it for you. Mvnifest, Mvnifest. And I'm on Twitter at Sorry Robots. And I'm all over LinkedIn. Got a lot of fun LinkedIn friends. So hit me up there, Samantha T. Rose.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Samantha.
Thank
Sam,
you.
good to have you on.
For having me on.
Take care.